Hello, and welcome to episode 12 of Pinball in the Machine. Wow, episode 12, we are getting through them. So this is a podcast for all you wakies out there. This is where we discuss the what the hell just happened aspect of what you might loosely be termed a spiritual awakening. So if you're if you're someone interested in this idea or simply have been in a period where you're not too sure what's going on, why not take a listen? You might find it's more normal than you think. Each week, my dear friend Greg and I meet to discuss our experiences and thoughts, as well as diving into feedback or questions. Okay, so let's go for it. I'm Tom, and I'm here with Greg. Greg, how are you doing?
Hiya, Tom. I'm very well, thanks. It's been a week or so, and the upgrades continue.
Ooh.
And they're getting stronger, as well as the subsequent downloads. And everything just gets more clear and specific. So I'm really getting to see how things connect, and it's amazing. So each time I go, there's another little piece of the puzzle. But in the last 10 days, 3 friends of mine have been in touch, each one going through the dark night of the soul. There's lots of fear and uncertainty and upset and betrayal and loss and all that stuff. And it seems to be the way of things now that more and more people are hitting the wall. I think this is really where the meditation is so important, because this is where the power is in that sort of situation. So maybe sometime we can talk about that.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's something we could do next week. So all these 3 individuals, is it a coincidence? Are they all working through some stuff at the moment?
They're very, very different situations.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really the chaos that they're talking about. You know, it's
But they're identifying a crunch point.
Yeah, and this is why there's no one size fits all, because each person is getting some different version or method of going through this thing. But it's a case of just riding the dragon. And I think if people can just meditate at the drop of a hat, they'll realize that they're in the chaos. And this is where, we've spoken about this before, but this is where the chaotic nodes are. So this is where the huge changes can occur once they get their mind into the idea that they're just watching a game. They become the observer. And I think we could really have some fun with that one.
I guess also you're giving it language as well, aren't you? You're giving that moment in time clarity and meaning for them. And once you've been through that process, you look back on it quite fondly. It's a rebirth,
yes,
right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's a spiritual death with a new beginning.
I did everything to fight it. I mean, everything.
Don't fight it, guys. Well, look, I thought we'd kick off this week referencing something we were talking about a little bit last week, and it was from a conversation I've been having with a friend, where he basically sort of saying, Tom, how do you meditate? I'm closing my eyes, and nothing's happening. So I thought maybe we could talk about the feelings that sort of help you settle into meditation, and how maybe we found it getting easier and easier, and what that looks like. Do you want to give us something on that, Greg?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've had a lot of that too. People saying, I don't know, I'm sitting there and nothing's happening, or I'm getting into too many negative thoughts or visions. And then when they go in, it's kind of like they're worried about having those visions. And of course, that's where that vibe goes. So, it's a tricky situation, which is why I say never meditate if you're fearful, because, it'll take you to the wrong place. So that really, for me, is the main feeling here, is that your intention drives the show. And it drives the show in everything, as far as I can tell. So it's always about your intention going in. And that's why I say, you can go with a question. What's my next step? Or you can request something. Can you give me more clarity about whatever it is? So when I started to do this in earnest, all I did basically, and I don't know why I thought of this, but I just sort of welcomed my guides and accepted my soul's journey. And it was quite a shift for me.
Yeah.
And things really started to happen after that. So it seems like the intention, like the question, they follow the same path. The higher the quality of your intention or your question, then the more fulfilling will be the answer.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
it's, how do I pay the electricity bill? That's one level. And if it's how do I serve, the greater good of mankind? Well, that's a different level.
I've got you. I find as well that there are physical aspects to it as well. I sometimes feel like I can meditate more easily if I'm in a physical sanctuary, as it were, which for me often is actually my home. And actually, if you think about it, there's quite a lot of historical cases, aren't there, of people effectively building sanctuaries for themselves for the
Absolutely.
purposes of, and there's lots of stuff about the kind of architecture and geometries that supposedly can help, or that historically people looked at. So I find that the intent comes a lot more easily when I feel I'm in that sanctuary. And the other thing I really, because I really thought about this the other day, was, do you know that feeling when you're lying down to go to sleep, and you're going to go to sleep? You just
Yeah.
And because there are also occasions when you lie down and you're not going to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes find that with the meditation, it starts to become the same way after a while, because of some the way it makes you feel, or some I don't know, some signposts in your head or markers that you've left. You can close your eyes and you just know you're going to go to a certain place, and then you go there. But that's the only way I could kind of describe that feeling, and I want to do it more.
Yeah. So you're talking about set and setting, aren't you? It's your mindset going in.
Yeah,
and it's the setting
so.
you do it in as well.
Yeah.
So it's a ritual. I think it was Nietzsche had a cave built in his cellar that he could go and just lie dormant in it for whatever,
Wow.
I think it was anyway, but it is a kind of a ritual. It's it's not like jumping onto Facebook to see what's what. So I block out time virtually every day. If there's the odd day I can't do it, it doesn't feel good. I love it. But the other thing about this is just allowing it to be whatever it is. Yoda says, do or not do, there is no try. And I would say, so you might have those thoughts, negative thoughts or visions or stuff. And basically you just look at them, think, oh yeah, well, there they are. And as you look at them, you become the observer. And then you just use your intuition. And that's a big feeling as to how it feels in the moment. And, sometimes guided meditation can be a really good way in for people who say nothing's happening. So just get somebody to talk in your ear about, what to visualize or whatever.
I wonder whether there's sometimes an expectation that you're kind of going to see the full vision the first time you close your eyes. And I guess we've got to stress that this is a process. I mean, we call it kind of journeying, but there's a reason for that, right? When you first start, you possibly haven't really got any kind of idea what you've just seen, or why you've seen it, or heard it, or felt it. But you still heard it, or saw it, or felt it, and just place that down, and then go again, and go again.
Yeah.
And things will start to happen.
Well, loads of times, not so much lately, I don't know, in the past 9 months or so, but earlier on, I would go into meditation and I'd be sitting there frustrated as hell thinking, well, nothing's happening. Damn, and then I'd be gone without knowing I'd gone, but I knew I'd come back. I thought, wow, and so many times it was just, well, nothing's happening. And once I got bored with it, I kind of let go of something, I don't know, and then boom, I was gone. And I haven't done that in a long time, but they could be really frustrating because it doesn't feel like anything's going to occur. And then it does once you give up on it, kind of.
And one technique that I've used in the past is sort of putting markers down as well. If you were having a period early on where you didn't really feel like anything was happening, and then suddenly you got something, if you could bring it back with you, then I almost placed a physical marker at that point,
right
where I was. And then the next time I could almost shoot straight to that, and then I could go further and see what was beyond. And you were inching your way into something, as it were, taking baby steps obviously, I think as you get more practiced, you can then start zooming all over the place. And the more places you've been to, the more varied it is, the more you can go back to.
Yeah. And that applies to people like me who are not visual. So as you're describing that, it's perfect visual. I go to this point and I memorize this point and I go from this point to the next point. It's perfectly visual and it's brilliant. I can't do that. So I have to feel the thing. So to me, it's like a warm soup, and then a little eddy will just whip me out somewhere into something a little bit different. And then I'll come back into the mainstream again. That's how it feels to me. And then I can now play with the light of that as well. And the frequency. So I'm starting to build these things in, but they come over time, and there's no formula for me. You got to do what feels right to you. If it doesn't feel right, it's not going to work.
So I think the answer to the question then is really you've just got to just go for it and don't worry about it. If you close your eyes and nothing happens, it doesn't matter.
That's a result.
Yeah. And then go again the next day. I think it's about finding the time and the place and the intent.
Mm-hmm. Right there.
And the practice. Yeah. Okay. So on a similar vein to that, actually, we had another question, Greg. So this related to something you mentioned way back, maybe in episode 2 or 3, I think it might have been, about how you'd accidentally meditated to techno music once and had a pretty wild experience. But the question sort of follows from that. It's sort of, what sort of music do each of you listen to, and where can I find it?
Okay. Well, once I got over the trauma, and it was amazing, really. It was something to do with the Andromeda strain. I don't know, Andromeda galaxy, whatever it is. Ooh. And I just hit this button. I was ready to go, hit the button, and boom. And I just rode with it. It was amazing. I've never done it since. I don't know why. And there'll be a reason for that I'm not aware of. And I trust this very much. So the music will depend. What music to use on a journey? It'll depend on where I want to go.
Okay.
So music is just changing your frequency, which is changing your consciousness, right? Now, the ancients used psychedelics. The cave paintings, they reckon, were painted by people on psychedelics, but they're illegal and for a sinister reason. But anyway, I'm not advocating their use. But we can raise or expand our consciousness through sound, and it's perfectly legal. So as the vibration alters our state, it will enable us to explore certain things. So you can get sounds on YouTube for aligning the chakras, for instance, or opening the pineal gland, or meeting your guides. I was on one yesterday that was a DMT thing. It was a pulsing thing. It was kind of fun, and there were some good visuals, and that's through sound.
Yeah.
So, there are all kinds of methods. There's a great app for people with iPads. It's called My Noise. And you can actually compose your own music by using clips of other things. Amazing. You can get amazing meditation music with that. You can walk and meditate. You can run, do yoga, dance. There's all sorts of ways to do it. So the music is just one element of it. And I would say whatever fits your mood. If you like classical music, go with that. I wouldn't go with rock or blues. It's not a good vibe. Although I tend to listen to rock before I meditate, which is really weird. I don't know why I do that. It's just because I like rock, I guess. But anyway, I do listen to some, Black Crowes or something, and then I'm into my meditation, which is kind of weird. So it'll very often depend, but for me, it'll usually be some sort of pulse that does something to my chemistry.
Okay. Yes, I can identify with that, because I think I maybe approach it the other way around. So I'll be on some platform, whatever, YouTube or and effectively the bots are throwing music at me, right? They think they know what I like, and they're just they're chucking new stuff. And what'll happen is that every now and then it'll throw something at me, and I'll start listening, and instantly, as you said earlier, it changes my state.
Yeah.
And then what will happen is I'll find myself almost listening to it on repeat and just walking around listening to it and almost obsessed with it, and I know, and there's a reason for that. It's because it's come in and it's hit me at a certain point at a certain time, and something needs to be done with it.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll take it and I'll run with it, and it'll take me somewhere that I wouldn't have gone to if I hadn't come across it. So it's kind of letting chance play out in a way. But I know the second I hear a new piece of music that it's one of those pieces that's gonna grab me.
Great.
It's gonna take a hold. And there's so much out there now, isn't there? On whatever, on the streaming platforms and social media, you can just plug in and just let those lovely bots just throw whatever they want at you.
Yeah, I've never done that. Maybe I should give that a shot.
See where it takes you. Okay. We've got time for one more question. So this one came off the back of the timelines piece. I recall I talked about a period where effectively I felt like the timelines shifted for me in terms of kind of discovering my feminine, losing my fear, losing the anger. And a friend of mine sort of challenged me on that and sort of said, oh, you're some kind of Zen master now, are you? But his point was actually, he said, well, if you're not reacting in any way, aren't you going to let people walk all over you? So it's almost like a practical question.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, then I started thinking about boundaries. But what do you think about that piece?
Well, I love the idea of Zen master. Wouldn't it be lovely? I just don't have the discipline.
No.
So it seems to me, and I'm mentoring some guys at the moment, and they lead with their heart. And it seems to me that those who lead with their heart attract the sharks. And so boundaries are very important, because when your heart is open, the sharks come to feed.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're the people who drain you, who take advantage of you, who betray you, all the good stuff. However, what I've also found is when the vibe alters, the lower vibration people tend to fall away. So as we come to know, as we explore whom we truly are, the fear falls away. And we more easily become the observer, which is what we talked about earlier. You're just kind of looking at the thing. And there's a part of us, it is the observer. There's that part of us that's never afraid, ever, because it knows. That's why it's just observing. The fear is in our illusion of separateness, which is the ego, there's a story attached to that. I'll tell you very quickly, because we got a couple of seconds. I was journeying the other day, and my ego showed up and said, why do you keep trying to kill me? I love you. I just want better things for you. And I thought, oh my God. And I just felt this feeling of love. It was really overwhelming. So there I was, falling in love with my ego, right?
Yeah.
And then part of me goes, this could be dangerous. And then I realized what the deal was. Fall in love with your ego, but just don't let it drive the bus. And so because the ego is where the fear is, and that feeling of separateness, when we let go of the ego as much as possible, or love the ego for what it is, and it isn't the driver. It's like letting a 3-year-old in the car saying, we'll take it for a spin. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So if we realize that, then we become more the observer who says, oh, that's interesting. Look how that's playing out, rather than it's affecting me in this way, and how dare you.
I love how you set the boundaries for your own ego there. And that's what you can do with other people as well, isn't it? Essentially, is you can still be very clear with what your intent is, and it'll come, as you say, it'll come from the heart.
That's where it belongs, and that's where it needs to come from. Yeah.
Excellent, very interesting. So, actually, that's pretty much all we've got time for this week. So remind me, Greg, what are we going to next week? We'll do a little bit more on the dark night of the soul again. That sounds like
we could go into that.
We could go into a little bit more, especially if you've got so many people hitting that wall, right?
Yes.
I wonder if
and they're just the ones who've been in touch.
Yeah, and independently as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder how many people out there right now are in that place and just don't have the words to describe it or know what it is.
And the trick to that with the meditation and becoming the observer ultimately get you out of the fear, and then you see the deal.
Nice.
Nice.
So, as I said, that's all we've got time for on this week's Pinball in the Machine, and I do hope you enjoyed it, and maybe it made you consider something that you hadn't considered before. Just to reiterate, we really want to hear from you, and that's at hello@pinballinthemachine.com, or we've got our Facebook page, Guides Not Gurus, and you can also find us on other stuff now as well. We're on TikTok, we're on Acast. The list is growing, Greg. YouTube as well, and obviously pinballinthemachine.com. But from myself, it's bye-bye, everybody. And from you, Greg?
Good day.
That's a wrap. Cheers all.